Good morning, fathers of daughters. Welcome to Girl Dad YouTube channel. This is Ephraim B. Martin. To all my Spanish speakers, bienvenidos aquí. I appreciate you. Well, fathers, it's another Saturday actually. I'm not Sunday. I'm recording today on Saturday instead of Sunday. So welcome to another live stream, Girl Dad YouTube channel. Fathers, today what we're going to be discussing is K-12 education versus the criminal justice system. And the reason we're going to be discussing K-12 education versus the criminal justice system, fathers, is because as fathers of daughters, we need to be very aware of what's going on with our children in K-12 education so they do not end up in the criminal justice system. Very, very important, fathers. I worked in K-12 education for 10 years as a teacher, restorative justice coordinator, and dean of students. I worked in the criminal justice system for 20 years. I've been a certified paralegal since 1984, and I was a state of Colorado juvenile probation officer. So I've worked on both ends in the criminal justice system and K-12 education. On the front end, on the back end of the criminal justice system, that's the back end. The front end is K-12 education. So what we don't want is we do not want our children, our daughters, to end up in the criminal justice system from K-12 education. The reason that this is so important, fathers, is because it's very easy for our daughters, our children, to end up in the criminal justice system via K-12 education. It's a very, very simple process. A lot of times, a lot of children can end up in the criminal justice system a few ways from K-12 education. Sometimes they can end up in, the majority of the time that they'd end up in the criminal justice system from K-12 education is because of fighting in school. Most schools, junior high schools, middle schools, not junior high, middle schools and high schools, most of them have what's called a school resource officer. SRO is the acronym. And that's a cop that's assigned to the school. And if you have a cop in your school, that avoids having to call law enforcement if a situation arises at the school. But the problem with that is that a lot of these law enforcement officers do not have relationships with a lot of these children. And it could end up becoming a situation where some of these law enforcement officers actually target kids. I've seen it, right? So that is one way that our kids, our daughters, can end up in the criminal justice system. The second way in which it could happen is through truancy. Unfortunately, the filing of a truancy petition by the school. So if your child misses a certain number of days in school and the school is trying to work with the family, trying to get the family interventions, trying to get the family to respond, to have their children come to school, because you're mandated. In the state of Colorado, you're mandated to attend school until you're 16 years of age. And then once you turn 16, you could drop out if you decide to. But prior to being 16 years of age, you're mandated to attend school. And a lot of kids have issues at school. A lot of kids are different learners. There's just a lot of different reasons for a lot of children not wanting to attend school. It could be family problems. It could be a lot of issues at home. It could be issues at school. There could be a breakdown and a disconnect between the school and the home. There could be situations where parents are not engaged and supporting their kids in school. So there's a lot of situations where children end up in truancy court. And that's another way for a child to end up in the criminal justice system. Because even though you don't have a criminal case, it could end up becoming that for not going to school, right? So I just want to share some great videos with you today and I want to talk about solutions. That's what Girl Dad YouTube channel is all about, fathers. We're all about solutions here. Okay, we're all about solutions. We're all about looking at statistics and data, which equals solutions. Okay, so that's what we're going to be dealing with today, Father. I got some great videos. I would want to encourage all fathers to be very, very engaged when it comes to their children's education, the primary grades. We really don't have anything to worry about because they're all under 10 years of age. Once they get to middle school, though, that's where a lot of problems begin. Particularly for a lot of our daughters, that's when the transition from elementary to middle school. A lot of our daughters are going to have issues with the transition going into middle school. Okay, so we got to keep an eye on that, and we want to make sure that we know who their teachers are. We want to make sure we continue to support our daughters, our children, back to school nights, meetings, meeting with the teachers one-on-one, showing up at school, just making sure that our children are handling what they're supposed to be handling, and we as their parents are supporting them. Okay, so fathers, this is a critical part for a lot of our children, particularly our little girls, because once they get to middle school, if they're lost in the transition from the primary grades to middle school, it could become a huge issue. It could become a legislation problem. And legislation is laws, right? We do not want our children, we do not want our daughters, I'm telling you, fathers, involved in the criminal justice system. And the reason we do not want our daughters involved in the criminal justice system ever is because the criminal justice system can't do anything for our children but make them worse. Yes, the criminal justice system, the juvenile justice system, is all about rehabilitation. But I would challenge you, fathers, you don't want to find that out. Because once you get involved in the criminal justice system, and if Department of Human Services, aka Social Services, aka Child Protection Services, gets involved with your family, it will be a nightmare. I promise you. Or it could become a nightmare, or both. Okay. So I want to share these videos with you, fathers. I want you to process these videos, and I want you to engage yourselves, because this is important. K-12 education, right? The government's involved. And we know how a lot of parents don't like the government. And my only advice to parents is, when it comes to both K-12 education and the criminal justice system, if you don't like the government, don't let them come into your world. Don't let them have a say for the rearing of your children. Because if your children are not doing what they're supposed to be doing in school and they end up in the criminal justice system, the criminal justice system is going to act, and they will take care of it. Okay, let's take a look at these videos, and got some great videos today. I promise you, I got some great videos today. And the first, I got 12 videos, and they're all pretty short. Couple of them are maybe 5 to 7 minutes, but most of them are pretty short videos. The first 6 videos we're going to be taking a look at is talking about K-12 education. Videos 7 through 12 will be talking about the criminal justice system. Okay, fathers? So once again, welcome. Appreciate you. And let's get busy with these videos. Okay, let's see. Okay, fathers. First video.
I know over 20 teachers who have quit.
30, 20, 25.
Teachers are quitting by the masses.
Teachers that were just colleagues of mine were in tears coming to me saying, I'm so glad you got out. I'm so glad you got out.
Educators are quitting their jobs in alarming numbers. Schools are missing hundreds of thousands of staff, and more than half of educators say they're thinking of leaving.
And I resigned my position as teacher.
I submitted my resignation last week.
I will be leaving Gwinnett County Schools.
So why are they so desperate to get out? Teaching was never easy, right?
It's not the way it used to be.
Was it COVID?
The education crisis was very much here way before COVID.
Are the kids out of control?
That's not it at all.
This is failure by design. The education system is crumbling because America's politicians made it fail. Underfunded, abandoned during COVID, and vilified in America's vicious culture war. Teachers have had enough. The real losers are the kids.
So this is a box full of stuff that like my kids made me. It's a girl that's like in darkness and trapped in chains, which is sad because that's how I felt. I was the director of school counseling. It was the largest junior high in Indiana. This is a card of somebody drowning. Like, that's full circle.
Anna Sutter counseled over 600 kids. Her colleagues started quitting and weren't replaced, so
I was doing lunch duty, hallway duty, bus duty. I explain it in the sense that like I was spinning 100 plates and I only had the capacity to spin 25 plates. I was working 13-hour days and not sleeping, not eating. But then as soon as one plate fell, just the feeling of failure.
Anna quit in March with no job lined up.
Walking to class, just walking to class, don't mind the shoes, man. Just to go into an empty class with no teacher, like this gotta stop, bro.
It is so bad, I want to give you a 0, but that's not possible. So I give you a 1.
There was no sub nor teacher in our class for the whole period.
Millions of kids are showing up to classrooms with no permanent teacher.
We don't have subs and we're just getting, whoever we can get that will come in and basically babysit.
So we had kids like academically not doing well. We might have a technology person covering a PE class or social studies covering a math class.
They're calling our bullshit. They know that we're just cycling people through.
We wanted our students to see.
Fully fund public education.
Shut it down. Shut it down.
Teachers called out the deepening crisis for years.
Well, I cry bullshit. You don't respect us. If you respected us, you'd listen to us. You don't appreciate us. If you did, you wouldn't make our jobs literally impossible to do.
They pleaded with legislators for decent wages, but nationally, salaries went down.
We are making 10% less money than we were a decade ago.
That's in Indiana. In Missouri, officials just raised the minimum starting salary to $38,000. But it's temporary. They'll go back to $25,000 soon. Know who makes more?
Those aren't even living wages. Those are more starvation wages. And that's why people have to keep 2 and 3 jobs just to survive.
I worked at an ice cream shop,
grocery delivery,
a tutor, waited tables,
Uber and Lyft, bouncer.
I work approximately 60 to 70 hours per week. I'm exhausted.
And then came COVID.
They want their kids back in the classroom.
The heated debate over masks is escalating into physical altercations.
Masks weren't the problem. When schools reopened, many kids returned traumatized.
It went from prioritizing student needs to prioritizing crises.
I am expected to be a teacher, to be a counselor, to be a social worker, to be a nurse, to feed, clothe, shelter.
There were times where I had to do 5 suicide assessments in one day.
They missed almost 2 years of being socialized.
Kids were missing basic skills.
They couldn't handwrite because they had done everything virtually.
This is just your reminder to check in on your teacher friends because this shit is not easy.
I'm joining the crying in your car teacher trend. Because you just feel like everything you do is shit.
And educators who actually made it through the last 2 years are facing this.
Please stop the sexual grooming of our children.
We're not going to let them put the books on the shelf.
Public schools have vivid pornography in it.
It's really frustrating to hear about whether it be how we're indoctrinating or how we're teaching the wrong things or how we need cameras to watch us because we're not doing the right stuff.
Our school system is for educating kids, not indoctrinating kids.
Yeah, Florida had thousands of teacher vacancies this year.
Stop indoctrinating our children.
Stop indoctrinating their kids with crazy messages.
In the last 2 years, over a dozen states have prioritized passing laws to restrict what teachers can teach or even say. Those same states have some of the worst teacher vacancy rates in the nation.
I think that that's absolutely driving a ton of people out of the profession.
By putting censorship first, politicians with their warped priorities are deflecting from the real problem, making sure kids even have teachers.
We rely on teachers to not give a about themselves. We rely on teachers to not care about themselves. We rely on teachers to not know their worth and to not know what they deserve.
When we have no adult in the classroom, it sends a message directly to the kids, and that is, no one really cares about me. If you cared, you'd be here. It feels like abandonment.
Okay, fathers, what are your thoughts on that first video? This is where we're at today in public education. And there's not a singular solution, okay? I know when I worked in K-12, I worked in K-12 education from 2004 to 2003, to 2014. So I've been at it, K-12 education for 12 years, 10 years. It's been 10 years since I left K-12 education. And I can tell you what these teachers are saying. What's crazy is this, right? When you think about the pay for teachers, and there's always this debate on teachers don't, make enough, and, they should be passionate, this, that, and other. What people fail to realize when it comes to being a teacher is your pay is should be associated with your growth as a teacher, right? So let me give you an example. I believe when you come out of college and you have your bachelor's degree and you're going to become a teacher, I think nationwide, every teacher, whether you're in elementary school, middle school, or high school, first-year teachers should start making $75,000 a year. Now, when you hear $75,000 a year, people freak the hell out. $75,000 a year. You have some states where they're paying teachers $25,000 a year. There's absolutely no incentive to stay into the field. Why would you? $25,000 a year, then you got to go get a second job. And like these teachers are saying, when you're in a school, you wear all these different hats, whether you want to or not. It's just that's how it's built into the system of education. That's just what it is. So my thing would be, if you want to get the best, you got to pay for the best. That's just how life works. But what happens is, legislation, once again, Department of Education, once again, everybody becomes stupid. Right? You have all these professional men and women with all these doctorate degrees and master's degrees. They do all these studies on education. But at the end of the day, pay is the number one problem when it comes to educating children. You're not going to pay me $25,000 a year right out of college to become a teacher. That is crazy as hell. So these school districts need to get it together, because I believe that the teachers unions have the power to get that 75,000 started. Or you're going to continue to recycle what's happening today. Those are your two choices. See, there's no gray area when it comes to this, fathers of daughters. There's no gray area. So society, we can sit back and bitch and complain all we want about the educational system. But until you start with the pay and address the pay in every state, I'm recommending $75,000 right out of college. If teachers knew they were going to be making $75,000 right out of college, you would get the best of competition to become a teacher. That's just how life works. That's not rocket science. But legislators sit around with the bullshit. And kids get screwed. And guess what? I'm so glad my 4 adult daughters, I'm glad they're adults. Because I don't have to deal with this foolishness and nonsense. And this is just absolutely crazy. You don't have enough teachers. So what they do is they put a warm body in a classroom. No instruction's going on. No teaching's going on. And then we wonder why kids are disengaged. We wonder why kids don't want to go to school. They don't even have a full-time teacher. There's no relationship building being done at a lot of these schools during these school districts. And I'm telling you, public school is going to shit. It is. It's going to hell. Quick. And all these adults, everybody's just sitting around twiddling their thumbs. It's crazy to me, but you got to start. I'm telling you, you better start with that pay right out of college. First year teachers, $75,000 a year. I think that's fair. And I think it's appropriate. But I get pushback on that. People tell me I'm crazy. That's too much money for a teacher. Okay. So if that's too much money for a teacher, what is your solution then? Because see, a lot of people talk shit, but they don't have a lot of solutions when it comes to the crisis in the classroom. Because that's exactly what it is. It's a crisis. Play dumb if you want to, fathers of daughters. Play stupid if you want to, parents. But your children are going to pay. While you're at work trying to earn a living, trying to sustain yourselves as a family, your kids are getting screwed. It's just what it is. That's just what it is. Okay, fathers, let's take a look at this next video. Let me get it set up. Okay, fathers and daughters, this next video, we're going to be talking about truancy and what that looks like. The growing truancy crisis in America's classrooms. Now understand, this is the effect of not paying teachers what they're owed and what's fair, what's fair to them. Okay? Kids are going to pay. So that's what it is, parents. Be mad all you want. That's just what it is. Okay, fathers, next video.
This week, America celebrates Education Week. Across our country, there are great teachers, educators, and students. But in too many communities, the problems are even greater. According to experts, schools are in the midst of a crisis. Truancy and absenteeism are at record highs. Tonight, we go to one city where the crisis is real, the headwinds are strong, and the will to win is relentless. This report, part of our series, The American Classroom.
Hartford, Connecticut, called the insurance capital of the world, world-class private schools to match. That's one Hartford. We rode around the other. Our tour guide, a native son, a product of Hartford Public Schools.
So this is a ride along. This is when we take people out in the community to show them kind of like what we do. But normally, for me, this is me doing street engagement.
Street engagement.
Yeah. So normally I would drive through the neighborhoods, find young people, engage them in conversation.
At age 49, Diego Lopez bears the scars of his schooling.
What happened to your finger?
Oh, so I was shot.
You were shot?
Yeah, I'm a 4-time gunshot victim.
Where?
All over my body.
Be specific.
Like I was shot in the stomach, the chest, back, lower extremities, blew my finger off, the arm. It's like 9 bullet holes.
A 9th grade dropout, a former member of the Latin Kings, Lopez spent 10 years in a Connecticut state prison. He changed and became a counselor. Today, with one daughter in college, another who will attend soon, he's focused on helping children. The hard streets of Hartford, his office.
We're in what you describe as the trenches.
We're in the trenches. We at risk.
But yet you show up here, I don't see security, I don't see a weapon, I don't see Kevlar vest. I mean, you're doing in some way what the police do.
100%. Yeah.
Diego works with teenagers on the shy side of success.
What's up, man? Byron Pitts, how you doing?
Many of them high school dropouts, like Amanda.
I was a junior when I dropped out.
How long ago was that?
3 years.
So you dropped out in the 11th grade. May I ask why?
It was COVID.
COVID, oh, I see.
I felt like there was no need.
Did school give up on you or did you give up on school?
It was kind of both.
All right.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Appreciate
it. Thank you.
How you tell someone that education is important when they're worried about getting killed or gang violence and all this other stuff that's going on in their life? And we expect our children to learn when they don't even know if they're going to live.
So as you see it, what's broken in schools?
I don't think, our kids think education is as important as it was before. I think our schools are just straight up just failing our kids.
Those are hard truths in Hartford. In cities and poor communities across America, many desperate children feel like no one cares if they're in school, so they stop going.
Am I even working hard enough? Should I just give up?
I wouldn't be as motivated as I was before, and I would start skipping.
Going to school started to become like a big struggle for me when I started to struggle with my mental health.
Children reaching a breaking point. Since the pandemic, students have disappeared from schools in alarming numbers. Over a quarter of all U.S. students, K-12, miss 10% or more of school. They're considered chronically absent.
The education system is working for some and not for others. And COVID-19 really, I think, exacerbated a lot of the challenges that we saw around educational inequality and disparate outcomes among different groups of children.
In our nation's capital, 48% of students are chronically absent. In California, 30%. Connecticut, 24%. Educators feel the burden.
I ask this question respectfully. Is the system broken?
We in school are tasked with solving for a lot.
The fight for the future of America's children is at a crisis point. In 2021, there were 2 million dropouts.
We're losing way too many children. They're either not showing up or they're leaving early and really not having any opportunities beyond that.
Nationwide, for millions of students, a typical school day is filled with too many obstacles. From issues with transportation, caring for loved ones, to depression and anxiety, students are missing school.
The education system is not working for Black and African American students. It's not working for students who may speak a language other than English. It's not working for students with disabilities. It's not working for students who live in poverty. And it's not working for students who don't have an advocate who can make sure that their needs are being met.
Every day, these campus peace builders, as they're called, go out into Hartford.
I have a couple of home visits.
Meeting young people where they are.
A youth in the hospital and then a mom.
Offering job training, providing basic needs like food, clothing, shelter, and friendship.
So the question of the day today is, what is an obstacle that keeps youth from going to school or causes them to drop out of school?
I think one of the biggest issues is trauma. We live in a traumatized environment and our schools are not trauma informed.
Compass has been working with 17-year-old Raheen Hodges for a year.
Are you in school?
No, not right now.
You dropped out.
Yes.
Why?
To be honest, when I came back from COVID, it's just like felt like school wasn't like motivating me.
Were you absent a lot?
No.
No, you would go every
I
day.
would show up, but I just wouldn't like participate.
What kind of grades did you get when you were in school?
Like C's, D's. And like when I did try, I would get like B's and A's. I feel like they gave up on me because like when I would try, I just wouldn't get the help that I like needed.
Give me an example.
Like they would make me feel like I was stupid. Like I would ask for help and like they would make me feel like I was just like dumb or something.
This time last year, Genesis Luciano had also dropped out of school.
Why'd you drop out?
I was homeless. So it was just a lot of stuff going on for me, and I just said I didn't want to do it anymore.
How old were you?
I was 17.
So were you a good student in a bad situation, or were you in a bad situation and not really that good a student?
I was a good student in a bad situation.
And do you think the school didn't see you?
The school didn't really understand me as much.
I think that it is difficult, unfortunately, right now to find joy in school. Schools have become places where teachers are stressed, are overworked, and for students, some of the content is increasingly irrelevant to them. We are now at a moment where we need to determine what the future of public education is in this country.
In many parts of the country, programs are being tested to help students like Genesis, strategies to improve grades and attendance. From door knocking in Los Angeles,
we knocked on 8,000 doors,
to signs reminding kids to come to school in Alabama.
Good morning.
Good morning.
To a truancy court in Nashville that tries to find solutions for each family based on the obstacles they face.
You want to try to encourage them to tell their story of what's going on.
I think that although local communities are doing a lot to increase student attendance, we really have to spend more time understanding the root causes.
A problem that affects all ages. Truancy can start young.
One thing that we found early on was our kindergartners had a 25% chronic absenteeism. That was my first, wake-up call.
No one knows the stats or the stories better than Leslie Torres Rodriguez, superintendent of Hartford Public Schools, born in Puerto Rico, raised in Hartford. She is a product of the system she now runs.
A 5-year-old cannot get to school on their own. We knew that there were familial challenges, housing insecurity, unemployment, health inequities that exist.
One school in her district, Michael D. Fox Elementary, is hoping to solve that problem by bringing health care straight to its students, like this school medical clinic, equipped with a full dentist chair, even staffed by a physician's assistant.
School-based health centers most definitely work. If a child goes to an appointment outside of school, they miss an entire day or a half day. If they come here for the same complaint, they're out of class for 30 minutes.
Because of this clinic, MD Fox says they've seen an improvement in attendance.
If we can keep them healthy, we've got them at the best of their ability to be able to focus on reading or learning math or whatever it might be.
Down the hall, there's a food pantry.
A lot of the systemic challenges that happen, all of that plays out in the classroom, in our schools. And we have to solve for it. We're not going to turn our back on our students.
So in that regard, what grade would you give yourself?
I could say we can always do more.
I need a grade.
Oh my goodness, you're going to put me on the spot. We're doing an average job.
Your voice said average job. Your eyes said.
Sadder. Yeah. It's sadder.
Genesis Luciano had her fair share of those obstacles. Now she's enrolled in an alternative school in Hartford. During our interview, Genesis's peace builder, Haley Jones, grew emotional as she quietly watched.
Y'all crying over there?
We asked her to join us.
She's literally crying.
Why are you crying?
Because this is years, man. This is years. This is like your heart. This isn't about money. This is an investment of what I know. I poured everything that I could into her.
Why give so much?
Because I owe my community that. Honestly, it's so real though. This job is like, I would do this for free. I say it all the time.
Jones says she could have been like Genesis, but in her words, quote, "I was just born in the right zip code."
It's just not her fault. It's just not her fault. And the world needs Jen here. The world needs Jen out of prison. The world needs Jen to become a mother. The world needs to hear from Jen. And there's many more kids just like her. Oh, I can't believe you got me crying. I can't believe it.
Where might you be without her?
I don't know. I would have been outside. I would have been in jail. I would have been nothing.
In communities large and small like Hartford, there are countless children without hope, without school systems that work. There are also adults who see them and their potential. Those adults are driven to act, often moved to tears.
When's the last time you cried?
I cry every day. I cry every day, man. I cry every day. I cry because I'm alive. I'm always thinking about the next day, about the next great thing.
When was the last time you cried?
Probably yesterday. I see myself in our students regularly, and that gets to me. That gets to me.
Our thanks to the good people we met in Hartford and across the country. We found counselors and educators who pursue their professions like good parents. They show up every day, love their children hard, even when it's difficult.
Hi, everyone. George Stephanopoulos here. Thanks for checking out the ABC News YouTube channel. If you'd like to get more videos, show highlights, and watch live event coverage, click on the right over here to subscribe to our channel. And don't forget to download the ABC News app for breaking news alerts. Thanks for watching.
Okay, fathers, what are your thoughts? Socioeconomic class is real. So let me give you an example. When I was a probation officer, well, let me give you the example of the school district I worked in, Denver Public Schools, in which that's where I worked. That's where I graduated from high school, actually, in 1983. So I went back to my old school district and worked in K-12 education. And my school was a school of color, schools of color. Okay. So when I was a probation officer, though, state juvenile probation officer, I worked in Jefferson County, Colorado, Lily White County. Now, you had a lot of the same issues in this county that have money, $1 million homes. Still had a lot of the same issues with children being absent from school, truancy petitions, being happening in court. I'm sorry. So socioeconomic class is real. And when you look at this, this is a crisis. So parents, you have to make sure you're engaged. Fathers of daughters, you better make sure you're engaged, because this could be your child. I don't care how much money you have or where they're coming from. If they're in public school, they're subject to this. Even if they're in private school, they're subject to this, because children have to build relationships with adults. They have to be able to trust adults. And the crisis that's going on in America in public education, it's insane. So I don't know how we're going to get it back to where it was. I really don't. There's not a singular solution. But I can tell you, starting with the pay gap is one huge solution. Because at $75,000 a year, if a teacher knew that's what they were getting coming out of college, I guarantee you'd get the best of the best. You would. And you can knock it all you want. But you would have more professionals probably living within the communities where they're teaching when you start with the pay gap. And for a teacher to have to work 2-3 jobs, I saw it in my district, saw it in my school. These teachers are burnt out. They're tired. Their hands are tied. And they're quitting. So now we have a crisis. And guess what? We're going to have to address the crisis in K-12 education, because if not, guess where these kids are going? to the criminal justice system. See, a lot of people, I got a video coming up here pretty quick. The pipeline. Education to the criminal justice system. It's real. You will have YouTube channels. You will have people talking about there's no pipeline to the criminal justice system. Bullshit. There's a straight pipeline. See, I've worked in both systems. So there is a pipeline to the criminal justice system from K-12 education. Trust me, there is. I can explain it. I can break it down. But most people that talk about there's not a pipeline, they've never worked with children. They've never worked in either system. So it's very easy to sit back and say what it's not when you haven't put in the work, when you don't have the professional experience like I have. It's very easy to say. It's very easy to pass judgment when you don't have experience of working in education or the criminal justice system. I find it interesting when I have these discussions with a lot of adults that are talking about this pipeline doesn't exist, primarily with children of color. I can destroy their argument or any position they come from because I was there. I worked on the inside. So I can explain it. And I know what's going on, and I know what I saw, and I know what I had to deal with. See, I'm not trying to have kids get on the back end of the criminal justice system. I want to stop them on the front end of K-12 education. I know what's waiting for them in the criminal justice system. And I know it doesn't take much to get there. So, okay, fathers, that was video number 2. Let's take a look at video number 3. Let me get it set up.
About early childhood.
Okay, fathers, video number 3.
A central fact about early childhood is that babies are born into the world entirely at the mercy of others. They have no native strength, intelligence, or utility. They cannot fight or complain, walk away or argue their case. Their survival depends solely on their capacity to look up from their cots with innocent, beautiful eyes and charm their parents into caring for them. It's their power to attract love that ensures they will be fed and clothed, protected and kept alive. In exchange for this nurture, young children readily offer their parents or caregivers unconditional admiration. They naturally adore and are boundlessly impressed by those who pick them up and bathe them, warm their milk, their sheets. They are in awe at these giant people who know how to turn on a washing machine and kick a ball over a tree. There is, at this stage, no innate desire whatever to question or doubt figures of authority. Given what is at stake, it follows that small children are instinctively hugely sensitive to how well they are doing at getting their admired protectors on their side. If they feel they are loved, they can relax into themselves and get on with the many other pressing priorities of early childhood, working out how to eat solids, figuring out what a plug socket is, how a button functions, what words are and how soap bubbles form. But if love is in more restricted supply, the picture grows a whole lot more complicated. There are childhoods in which, for a variety of reasons, parents fail to be charmed as they might be. They leave the baby to scream, they shout at one another, there might be violence and hysteria, lethargic despair and terror. The young child knows instinctively it is in grave danger. If the situation is not somehow corrected, in extremis, it may be left on a hillside to die. At this point, our biology initiates a desperate yet darkly logical process. The young child starts to try a lot harder. It redoubles its efforts to charm, to be good, to do what could be expected of it, to smile, to ingratiate itself. It wonders what may be wrong with itself to explain the parental disapproval and harm, and doesn't feel any alternative but to search in its own character and behavior for answers. At the same time, the child resists what might, from an adult perspective, seem like the obvious move: to get annoyed with and blame the adults in the vicinity who are not looking after it as they should. But such a bold thought does not belong to the defenselessness of the early years. We are in no position to mount a challenge to our protectors when we can hardly reach the door handle, let alone turn on a tap. We need to have our own front door key and bank account before cynicism is a realistic option. It is far more intuitive to wonder why we are horrid than to complain of being unfairly and unkindly treated. Small children therefore naturally turn injury done to them into dislike of themselves. They ask not so much, "Why does my parent fail to care for me?" as, "How might I have failed this admirable person?" They hate themselves rather than doubt those who should be protecting them. Shame replaces anger. It feels on balance like the safer option. A vicious spiral of self-hatred then sets in. The unloved growing child wonders constantly about their faults. Their parent may be alcoholic, narcissistic, sadistic, or depressed. They may never cook a proper meal or shout intemperately from their bedroom. But none of that matters in the slightest. The parent cannot be envisaged as anything other than substantially impressive. To explain the lack of love from the paragons of parenthood, it must be that the child is an awful person. They must be stupid and mean, selfish, physically repulsive, and irritating and shallow. As childhood gets left behind, much of this dynamic is forgotten. The adolescent and young adult overlooks exactly what went on. They cannot necessarily think clearly of the early years, and parental figures may be keen that they never do so. The former child can't tell anymore that their feeling of shame has specific origins. It can feel like something they might have been born with, a natural phenomenon, like bad weather or the flu. Liberation awaits us when we dare to take on board a highly implausible idea that our self-hatred, far from being inevitable, is an internalization of early deprivation, and that far from needing to revere and admire those who denied us love, we are in a position to understand, to question, to be annoyed, and to mourn what we did not receive. We are not so despicable after all. We've just, till now, lacked any better ideas to explain why we didn't manage to charm those who should have loved us from the start. How to Overcome Your Childhood is a book that teaches us how character is developed, the concept of emotional inheritance, the formation of our concepts of being good or bad, and the impact of parental styles of love on the way we choose adult partners.
Okay, fathers, the reason that that particular video is important is it's talking about the development of our children. And depending on how our children are developed is how they're going to respond to the world, point blank, period. That's it. And also depending on how our children are developed is whether or not they could potentially end up in the criminal justice system from K-12 education. Makes perfect sense. Excellent video. Needed to be shown, needed to be explained. I'm glad I have the experience that I do have working in both K-12 education and the criminal justice system. Because I'm going to tell you this, my 4 adult daughters, it wasn't an option for them to fail. It was not going to happen because I knew what was waiting for them if they didn't get through high school, if they didn't graduate. I knew what was waiting for them. And that wasn't an option for me, particularly being a criminal justice professional for 20 years. So I know what's waiting for these children on the back end when the front end doesn't work. So we have to make the front end K-12 education work, fathers of daughters. We have to. We have to give it everything that we have. We have to show our children the other side. And we have to give them a fair chance. That's our job as parents, is making sure our children can compete and have a fair chance in this world. Because if we fail them, they will definitely fail themselves. Okay, fathers, let's take a look at this next video.
Over the last several decades, we've seen immense
Okay, fathers, next video, school to prison pipeline.
Over the last several decades, we've seen immense changes in public education and how educators and administrators handle classroom management and discipline issues. Traditionally, students who misbehave are sent to the principal's office, given detention, suspended, or, in extreme cases, expelled. Sadly, students of color and students with disabilities are disproportionately represented in these cases. Even more unfortunate is that these students are often referred to juvenile detention centers and ultimately end up in prison, hence the name School to Prison Pipeline. In this episode of Let's Teach, we'll attempt to answer these questions. What exactly is the School to Prison Pipeline? Where does it start? Who is involved? And what can be done to stop it? By the way, if you enjoy content like this, don't forget to hit the like button, subscribe to the channel if you're new, and hit that bell notification button so you never miss a new video. Let's start with a little School to Prison Pipeline 101. The School to Prison Pipeline was born of policies and practices that employ harsh disciplinary strategies, strong police presence, and punishments that frequently involve out-of-class time, i.e. in or out of school suspension, detention, expulsion, etc. While these decisions come directly from school administrators, the root of the problem is in the classroom, where zero-tolerance policies and authoritarian, non-compassionate classroom management tactics propel teachers to refer students for these types of consequences. The pipeline is, of course, a major concern in general. However, what's more alarming is that the School to Prison Pipeline has essentially become a system for incarcerating young Black men and individuals with disabilities. For example, African American students are 3.5 times more likely to be suspended or expelled, which is the first step in the pipeline. In terms of proportions, the numbers have become even more daunting. Studies find that Black students make up 18% of the student body, but account for 46% of suspensions. 8.6% of school children have a disability, but these students represent 32% of the juvenile detention center population. And 1 in 4 Black students with disabilities have been suspended at least once, whereas only 1 in 11 white students with disabilities have incurred the same punishment. These stats are only the tip of the iceberg. So, what can be done about it? As we mentioned earlier, the first step in the pipeline is in the classroom. Zero-tolerance classroom management policies don't allow for empathy, compassion, and understanding for students' out-of-school trauma. Instead, students are fitted with a one-size-fits-all behavior policy and expected to fall in line. When they don't, they're referred to administrators for disciplinary action and, in many cases, a school resource officer. So, the most immediate course of action is to equip teachers with the training and support to interact with students who are carrying around trauma and baggage through no fault of their own. Behavioral and instructional intervention measures must be implemented to assist these students and equip them with tools to be successful. Referral to administration and especially school resource officers should be reserved as a last resort. And in the event that a student does move up the disciplinary ladder, administration must commit to identifying the root of the issue and working with the student and their family, if appropriate, to create a plan towards success. The good news is that many schools are moving in this direction. Here's the bottom line. Ultimately, it starts with knowing where students are coming from and meeting them there. Each student is a unique individual with their own special needs and should be treated as such, with dignity and respect, regardless of race, ethnicity, socioeconomic status, or identified disabilities. If schools can adopt that philosophy as a baseline, we may just have a chance at abolishing the school-to-prison pipeline. Have you ever witnessed unfair classroom management policies? Do you think contemporary changes in public education are going in the right direction? What do you think we can do to create sustainable change to this problem as a society? Let's talk about it in the comments below. Don't forget to like the video and subscribe to the channel, and hit that bell notification button so that you know whenever a new video's been uploaded. And remember, what's learned here leaves here. Share something you learned about the school-to-prison pipeline with a friend. Stay curious, stay safe, and I'll see you in the next one.
Okay, fathers. Excellent video. I don't do politics. I'm not a conservative. I'm not a liberal. I've always been an independent voter my entire life. So I don't endorse political parties. I never have, and I never will, because I think political parties, both of them, are horrible. But those are the two parties that were stuck with the United States of America. And the problem with that is the school-to-prison pipeline is political. Can't get past its politics because you got a bunch of bullshit adults in charge, right? Now, the system that is put in place is systemic in nature. But see, in the political realm, you can't speak about systemic racism. You can't speak about systemic systems, because when you do, we have to go and take it back all the way back to slavery, right? And we don't want to get on those conversations. We don't talk about those truths, because when we do, we have to come up with a solution. So I don't do politics. I despise politicians, because all of them, regardless of political party, lie, cheat, and steal. They do. And they have absolutely no problem screwing over kids. Saw it in K-12 education, definitely saw it in the criminal justice system. So my issue most of the time when I'm dealing with adults, and we're talking about K-12 education and the criminal justice system pipeline, it's not even ignorance, it's their arrogance to be able to generalize black and brown little boys and little girls, because they have the arrogance to do it. But when you don't work in a system, you've never had experience of working within that system, you can generalize. You can give your opinions, you can give your anecdotes, you can give whatever it is you want, because solutions require a lot of work. Now, this is where I press parents. I'm a parent. I raised 4 adult daughters, so I get it. And this is where I press parents. This is why you don't want your children in the criminal justice system through legislation. Because see, legislation fails our children. When the government gets involved and they start making decisions, they're going to do something. And chances are they're going to do opposite of what you would do. So why I press parents on this begins at home, parents. If you know you have a struggling child, if your child can't read or write, that's on you, parents. If your child is struggling, they may have a disability. We have to seek resources for our children. We cannot send our children to school unprepared. Because what ends up happening is their unpreparedness will land them in the criminal justice system. It is that simple. So it begins at home, point blank, period. That's where it begins. And if we send our children unprepared to school, this is what could happen. The school to prison pipeline is 100% real. I don't debate it anymore, because when you debate the school to prison pipeline, you're not looking at solutions. You're looking at blame them. But like I said, until we start to address the systemic system in which it's set up and how it's set up by design, politics rules. So parents, don't get caught up in the politics. Do what's in the best interest for your children all the time. And we're not going to have this issue. I don't trust the government to do anything for my kids. Never have, never will. It's not their job. Their jobs are to govern, not to raise our kids. It's that simple, parents. So when we turn it over to them, why would you think the results would be anything other than what they are? It's just what it is. Okay, let's take a look at this next video, fathers. Let me get it set up. Okay, the next video we are going to look at, fathers of daughters, is restorative justice in schools. And what is restorative justice? I was a restorative justice coordinator at one point in the school district where I worked. So restorative justice is a good thing. And there's always going to be a debate, because you have a lot of people that think that the school districts are soft on children. I don't believe that's the case at all. Schools are not soft on children. There's a process. Has nothing to do with schools being soft, though. Okay, next video, fathers.
Turning now to education news, the concept of restorative justice, sending badly behaving students to mediation sessions rather than suspending them, is igniting a debate about discipline in America's classrooms. Dre Clark is joining us live with more on this story. Dre?
Adrian, good morning. Restorative justice is all about rethinking how students are disciplined. Should you send a student at home for a few days and suspend them if they are caught fighting in class or disrupting the classroom? Or should you have an open dialogue, a conversation where they are allowed to express themselves and explain their actions?
Reading, writing, and now restorative justice. Restorative justice is a new disciplinary approach catching on around the country, where students are given mediation and counseling rather than suspension and expulsion when they get in trouble.
We have to know what the right thing for a particular child is, because every child is unique.
Betsy Combier defends students in school disciplinary cases. She says restorative justice only works when teachers and administrators do it the right way. She says in some cases, there's no real effort to understand why a student acts out angrily or violently in school.
It needs to be fixed.
But critics of the restorative justice concept say school administrators are taking the soft approach and abandoning suspensions. In New York City, which has the nation's largest public school system, suspensions of 5 days or more given out by principals and superintendents dropped by more than 42% from the fall of 2017 to the fall of 2021. Combier says it's become a numbers game for the district.
The more kids that are thrown out, the less funding they might get.
News Nation contacted the city's Department of Education and was told, "We do not tolerate violent behavior in our schools. And when incidents occur, principals are empowered to swiftly take a range of disciplinary actions, including suspensions." But in Elba Rodriguez's case, she says the district took the wrong action when they suspended her son.
The school system, the DOE, Department of Education, has failed my son.
Rodriguez's son is in special education. She says he should have had a behavioral intervention plan, but instead, when he acted out in school, he was suspended.
I feel that they need to train teachers staff how to deal with children with disability.
Suspension or restoration. Those are the options. And depending on who you ask, they both can be effective.
New York City Department of Education data shows that Black and brown students are suspended far more frequently than any other group. And that's another reason why many principals may be reluctant to suspend students, because they don't want to be labeled racist. Adrian?
Thank you for watching. Go to newsnationnow.com to find News Nation on your television provider. And don't forget to click the red subscribe button below to get more of News Nation's fact-driven, unbiased coverage.
Okay, fathers, excellent video. So what is a restorative justice coordinator? And what do they do? It's an individual that's hired by the school district. And this is what they do. I was a restorative justice coordinator. Your responsibility is to bring mediation when it comes to conflict in children. That's what you do all day. So it's not involving the teachers. It's not involving the staff. It's not involving the administrators. This is an actual person in the school. This is what you do all day. You bring mediation. And I can tell you, I was a restorative justice coordinator before I became dean of students, right? Middle school and high school. The middle school I was at, 90% Spanish-speaking kids. My first year as a restorative justice coordinator there, I brought the suspensions down over 90% through mediation with children. This is what I did all day. So you have to get buy-in from the teachers. You have to get buy-in from administrators. That's why I was there. So I spent a lot of time in classrooms doing circles. I spent a lot of time with the administrators, but this was my job. So I had full reign with these children. 90% suspensions went away when I entered that building. And then when I got to the high school level, it was the same thing. One of these days, I'm going to release my reports to the public so they could see exactly the work that myself and my other colleagues at other schools, excuse me, who are restorative justice coordinators, because I want to let people see exactly the work we did. And the reports were done independently. And just to be able to see those results, I know restorative justice works. I was a restorative justice coordinator. It works. But you have to have the right professional in the school. And it is up to that professional to ensure that he bridges the gap between teachers, students, and administrators. But I had complete buy-in at both of the schools, the middle school I was at and the high school. So it wasn't an issue. And then when I became a dean of students, I was a restorative justice dean of students. Although I was over disciplined, we had a restorative justice coordinator who I worked with directly regarding these children. And since I have been a previous restorative justice coordinator, it was a win-win. I was in charge of discipline. The restorative justice coordinator was in charge of mediation. So it was a win-win in the district I came from, Denver Public Schools. So restorative justice works. Restorative justice works. It is effective, and a lot of the kids need it. We got to keep them in schools. So I'm all for it. I could go in deeper, but that would require a whole different live stream. And I'm thinking about doing one. So, all right, fathers, let's take a look at this next video. This next video is talking about special education kids, SPED. And this is a very important video because a lot of parents, you will have a child that has an IUP, individual with education plan, as a special education student in a 504 plan. So I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. I let the professionals handle what they do, and they can explain it better than myself. So,
Hey
fathers
there,
and daughters,
I'm Luke. In today's
here we go with the next video. And it's talking about SPED, special education, IUPs, and 504 plans, which are federally mandated. Here we go.
Hey there, I'm Luke. In today's episode, we're going to focus on the differences between a 504 plan and an IEP, or individualized education plan. Specifically, we will focus on the following 4 aspects. Number 1, laws governing each of these legal documents. Number 2, the eligibility process. Number 3, the accommodations that are given with each. And number 4, differences between the 2 documents after high school. All of this and so much more on today's episode of Special Education Decoded. All right, before we discuss the differences between 504 plans and IEPs, I'm hoping you can help. On the bottom right-hand side of your screen, you will see a little logo with the word subscribe on it. Click that real quick. Thank you so much. Let's dive in and help shed some light on a couple more special education acronyms, the 504 plan and the IEP. Let's start by defining the 2 terms we'll be discussing. First, the 504 plan. A 504 is a plan that is developed to help ensure that a child who has a disability identified under the law receives accommodations or modifications. In simple terms, the 504 plan is a blueprint for how the school will provide support for children with a disability, remove barriers often found in a school system. Now, an IEP, or individualized education plan, is a plan or program developed to ensure that a child who has a disability identified under the law receives specialized instruction, accommodations, and other related services. Now that we have defined both the 504 plan and the IEP, let's talk about the laws governing each and how these plans were established. Section 1, laws governing the 504 plan and the IEP. Now, the 504 plan is directly pulled from Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. This section specifically pertains to the federal civil rights law, which halted discrimination against people with disabilities. Next, let's discuss the laws pertaining to an IEP, or individualized education plan. Most everything pertaining to an IEP can be found in IDEA, or the Individuals with Disabilities Education Act. IDEA is a federal education law for children with disabilities. Lots of information is found within IDEA, including FAPE, or Free Appropriate Public Education. You can find more about this important acronym in our video, specifically about FAPE. Next, let's discuss the eligibility children need for both the 504 plan and an IEP. Starting with the 504 plan. Now, a 504 plan is available for a child with any disability that interferes with their ability to learn in a general education classroom. The 504 plan includes a very broad definition of disability. Next, let's discuss the eligibility requirements for an IEP, or individualized education plan. To be eligible for an IEP, a child must have one or more of 13 disabilities, including specific learning disability, or SLD, other health impairment, autism spectrum disorder, or ASD, emotional disturbance, speech or language impairment, visual impairment, which includes blindness, deafness, hearing impairment, deaf blindness, orthopedic impairment, intellectual disability, traumatic brain injury, multiple disabilities. The disability must affect the child's education performance. In other words, an eligible child must need specialized instruction to make progress in school. Next, let's discuss the accommodations that are available for both the 504 plan and an IEP. The 504 plan is primarily used when children can function well in regular education classrooms. In other words, when academics aren't a major concern and special ed instruction is not needed, that's when a 504 plan is best. And we're going to discuss more about that in a moment. Accommodations in the 504 plan could include social skills assistance, additional time and less distracting environments for tests, physical breaks, or preferential seating. Accommodations are less restrictive than in an IEP. And as I stated earlier, they do not include specialized instructions. Next, let's cover accommodations for an IEP, or individualized education plan. Now, they're similar to a 504, but include one large difference. In other words, accommodations for an IEP include the same accommodations as a 504 plan, and an IEP does include specialized instructions. Now, examples include a self-contained classroom option, or different therapy options are also available. The last large difference between a 504 plan and an IEP is what takes place after high school. The 504 plan actually continues after high school. It can continue into the college years. However, at this stage, the plan will no longer be called a 504 plan. However, these children, or actually young adults, are still covered under Section 504 of the Rehabilitation Act. The precise accommodations provided are dependent upon the college in that case. For an IEP, however, services stop after high school graduation. Now, if a child takes longer to graduate, services will stop at age 22, regardless of whether or not a diploma has been received. Now, keep in mind, a child can transition back to a 504 plan type program and will receive similar accommodations as we've discussed under that plan. That sums up the difference between a 504 and an IEP. I truly hope this video helped you understand more about 504 plans, or at the very least, opens your eyes to ask more questions for your child. Now, we've covered many different aspects of an IEP in other videos. So if you do have questions specifically geared toward that document or even the process, please be sure to check out our IEP playlist. If you like what you saw in this video, please consider subscribing to our channel. If you have any suggestions on what you'd like to see in a video topic, or even additional questions surrounding the 504 plan, please leave a comment. Lastly, if you're looking for more one-on-one help through the IEP process, please be sure to fill out a consultation request. You'll find the link in the description. It's 100% free to start, but can truly make a massive impact on the type of service your child will receive. We absolutely love interacting with our incredible community and strive to help simplify the crazy world of special education. From all of us at specialedresource.com, thank you for watching this episode of Special Education Decoded. We'll catch you in the next video.
Okay, fathers of daughters, I needed to share that video. And like I said, I don't believe in reinventing the wheel. That's not my area of expertise, so I let the experts do what they do. All videos are in the description of every live stream that I do. So in the description, you will have all these videos that I'm sharing with you today. They are all available. So if you need additional resources, if you have a child that is in need, that may need to be seen and evaluated whether or not they're a SPED kid, follow the description, follow the links, and get your questions answered. Okay, fathers, the next 3 videos I'm going to share are on day treatment. And the reason I'm sharing them, and we're talking about day treatment, is because day treatment is a component of education that could end up in the criminal justice system. I'm going to explain it to you on videos 2 and 3, but the first video is the introduction to let you know exactly what day treatment is and how it works. And then I will explain on videos 2 and 3 the criminal justice system part of day treatment. All right, fathers? So let's take a look at this next video on day treatment in K-12 education.
Developmentally, not
Okay, fathers, next video.
Day treatment is a service for kids who are not able to be successful in the traditional school setting. They may struggle with anxiety, depression, they may have some behavioral difficulties, but we get them engaged in that service and help them learn the coping skills that they need to successfully transition back into the traditional school setting.
I believe the one thing I would say that's important about day treatment is that we are truly a bridge. We work with the families closely, we work with the school district closely, we work with the community closely to help these kids. We want to make a unified circle so that we get personal with the children to help them understand what they're going through and how to cope.
When you look at day treatment, don't look at it as a daycare service. Look at it as a putting them over here for a second to learn a coping skill, and then you integrate them back. Day treatment is just to get them to heal, mend, learn to cope. And that's the way we look at it.
The schools typically refer children to day treatment after they've exhausted all of their resources. They've put in place a functional behavior assessment. They've put in place 504 plans in the school, behavior plans. And they're a lot of times just not equipped to deal with the issues that some of our kids face. And the good thing about day treatment is these children are getting the mental health treatment that they need.
You kind of have kids coming from situations of being abused, being neglected, so much trauma in their lives that they shut down and they just want somebody to hear them. And the way they go out to get that might be aggressive, but they want to be heard.
At Alexander Youth Network, we use the neurosequential model of therapeutics. And what it is Dr. Bruce Perry's theory that the brain develops sequentially, and any kind of trauma, any kind of adverse experience can impact that brain development for children. And we use rhythmic repetitive activities to help them get on track with their brain development so that they're able to overcome any obstacles they faced in the past. The neurosequential model is based on rhythmic repetitive activities. So activities such as therapeutic drumming and big muscle activities, any repetitive activities help that child's brain to develop the way that it's supposed to and really help teach self-regulation, which is one of the main reasons why these children are referred to us, because they're not able to self-regulate.
The neurosequential model NMT helps kids through relationships, building relationships through our case managers, myself, the counselor that interacts with the kids on a daily basis. We build positive relationships that help them learn how to cope and help them be able to recognize their triggers or the behaviors so they will be able to handle them in a more positive light and not act out or shut down or lash out in a negative manner.
Your brain develops in a way where it's like taking steps. And then when you have trauma, you take out a step. So how do you still get upstairs? You know, you have to learn how to leap over that open space. So meeting them where they are, if you live normal and you're going up steps, you have to come down and see how the kid is getting up the stairs. What's really going on? Getting on the floor with them and understanding during the tantrum, what is it that you see? Because I don't see it. So we have to go to their level and deal with them developmentally, not chronologically.
Brain mapping is a tool that the therapists use in the day treatment setting, and it helps us to get a historical background on the child, it helps us to identify how intense the therapy needs to be as well, because it will show us exactly what areas of development that the child is lacking in. We do a brain map at intake, and we also do one at discharge, and it helps us to show outcomes and the progress that a child has made in their course of treatment. A lot of parents are often concerned about sending their child to day treatment because they're going to fall behind academically. We make every effort to ensure that the child does not fall behind and they're able to concentrate on those core classes and be successful.
Sometimes people think, oh, when they go to day treatment, it's not a real school. It's just a daycare. And so when they come back, are they really prepared academically? Academics is very important for us, but also that socialization piece helps them open their brain to want to learn.
We have some parents where we go out to the home to see them because they don't have the transportation to get to us. We make every effort to keep those parents involved. During the school year, I do parental involvement groups, and it's like a parent support group because a lot of parents don't realize that there are other parents experiencing the same issues with their children that they are. And it helps to have that bond with someone else who's been through the same thing. And we teach the parents coping skills to deal with it on their own. We also teach them interventions they can use at home to help their kids be successful in the home as well. Because if there are problems in school, there are typically problems at home too. Typically, transition plans from day treatment to traditional school involve a transition meeting with the child's home school that they came from. And that includes the principal, guidance counselor, behavior liaison, teacher, and our teachers that we have at our program. They'll start with an hour a week, and that time gets increased after 2 weeks to 2 hours. We do a very gradual transition so as not to overwhelm the child.
We build the PCP, which is a person-centered plan, and we assist them with the goals that's established in that plan. So when we meet with the school, we give them what goals they're working on and their progress on those goals. We also compile a list of how to help that person with the triggers. So the school will understand if a child is putting their head down, this is a trigger that something is wrong, so they can react in the proper way. We give them an hour or two at first to see how that transitions, and we meet monthly to meet with the student, the family, to ensure that it's going smoothly. And if we need changes, we make changes.
We're proud of our kids when they go back. We check on our kids when they go back. We want them to be successful.
A lot of people can't say that they love what they do and wake up every morning and want to go to work. I love what I do. I know that I'm making a difference in these children's lives. I had 2 kids graduate from high school last year. That's huge. These kids, when they started my program, had completely given up and were talking about dropping out. And they successfully completed school. So that's major in my book.
At the end of the day, you want to feel like you matter. And these kids want to feel like they matter. And they do. In my life, it becomes stressful because it's not a job you can just cut off at 5 o'clock. You worry about these kids all the time. But to know that when I come back, I can see a smile on their face, or if they're going through something, they feel comfortable enough to say, Miss Letitia, can I talk to you? Or Miss Wade, I need to see you for a moment, just to get out their feelings and know that I'm taking and respecting their feelings. That's why I keep coming back.
Every kid has a chance, and I'm that gateway. So sometimes I want to get down, sometimes I get frustrated. I go back to that success story, and it energizes me all over again. I'm doing what I'm meant to do. Plain and simple.
Okay, fathers. The next videos I'm getting ready to share with you is there's a school district here in the state of Colorado, Cherry Creek School Districts, that decided to take matters into their own hands and not wait and allow the criminal justice system to become a part of their students' lives. So they decided to pass the Bonnie issue in their district and build their own day school in Cherry Creek for all students, which is awesome. And I'm so glad to see that happen. The district I came from, Denver Public Schools, they don't have a day treatment within Denver Public Schools. I think every school district in the United States needs a day treatment to avoid kids transitioning to the criminal justice system. That's just my opinion. And I know the effectiveness of day treatment because some children, every child is different when it comes to learning. And some of these kids, they need more interventions than an actual classroom in order for them to graduate from high school. So the next video, 2 videos I'm getting ready to share with you are showing you Cherry Creek School District in Colorado. That shows they're in Aurora, Colorado. That shows you their day treatment building from ground up, and I'm impressed, and I'm glad that they decided to do that. So let me get it started here. Let me bring it up. They're going to be back-to-back videos. They're about 3 minutes each.
Leaders in the
Okay. Here we go, fathers.
Leaders in the Cherry Creek School District were fed up that they could not help students dealing with serious mental health issues. No available spaces in so many of the intensive mental health programs in our area. So the district decided to build its own day treatment facility that it will help run. It's such an unconventional idea that even the person who proposed it was surprised it got approved. Here's Anusha Roy.
Standing in the middle of this construction site, Dr. Tony Poole is beaming.
It's really exciting. It's really cool.
He suggested building Traverse Academy in Aurora that will open as a day treatment facility this fall, where kids can receive both treatment and continue their studies.
10 years ago, we had 77 placement options in the metro area for students with mental health needs. As of today, we're down to 16. And so when we went looking for solutions, the answer that kept coming back our way was, if you want day treatment spots, build your own.
16 facilities for the more than 540,000 school-age students in the metro area. So in 2020, during the height of the pandemic, Dr. Poole took his chances because they'd lost too many people.
We had lost several students to suicide in that school year. And at some point, after the loss of one life, enough is enough.
Cherry Creek School District ran a bond and voters said yes to paying for the $15.5 million facility.
Because you can't learn if you're sad, you can't learn if you're sick, you can't learn if you're hungry.
Michelle Weinrob is the Chief Health Officer for Cherry Creek Schools.
If we can't keep up with them and their needs, and then we're not doing right by them.
But doing right by them means giving kids the right care. And Dr. Poole said people should be asking questions about a district helping run a behavioral health facility like this.
10 years ago, I would have said that school districts had no place in getting involved with therapeutical, clinical levels of mental health day treatment. I think that's changed. I think the crisis has gotten so severe that it's going to take all of us.
So on that last point, and a really important part of this is that it's Children's Hospital and CU that will be providing the clinicians to assure that quality of care. So what this is doing is it's really stepping into this major gap that we've talked about before, that gap between therapy and then kids showing up at the emergency room. Now, the school district said they were able to move some money around in their budget to pay for this program moving forward. Plus, partnering up with a bunch of people and the fundraising. It's really important to pay attention to how it's being paid for because so many of these facilities, Kyle, are operating in the red, and then you end up seeing them being shut down.
Yeah, or you see facilities that are physically built and then portions are empty because they can't find the staff to work them.
Yeah, and I asked that exact question. I'm like, how are you going to get enough people to come work here? They're really hoping that it's the innovation and increasing the salaries that will get people through the door. They said a lot of people are showing that interest. And Kyle, yet again, this is another group that's saying they want to go to the Capitol. They want to talk to lawmakers about reimbursement rates. And I know I sound like this broken record, but for years, every time I do this story, they say the same thing. Reimbursement rates will change the game.
Anusha, thank you.
New this morning, we're New this morning, we're getting an inside look at the first of its kind mental health facility that offers intensive support and education.
It'll open next month, and Cherry Creek School District calling this the Traverse Academy. Carly Moore is taking a closer look at how this will work. Hey, Carly.
Hey, Kirk, Ashley, good morning. This is for Cherry Creek School students ages 10 through 18 who are having a mental health crisis, need a little bit extra help. So I'm here with the superintendent, Chris Smith. Thanks so much for joining us this morning. Tell me a little bit. I saw inside just a little bit, a gym, cafeteria, classrooms. It looks like a school. Tell me how it's different.
So it is a school. The difference here is in our home high schools, home middle schools, our mental health staff, what their focus is making sure students can access the classroom, making sure that they can access the content of the day. At this particular school, it's quite a bit different. So it's intensive outpatient therapy with our partnership with CU and Schultz. So students actually get clinical mental health therapy, and that does not happen inside of our home schools. So it gives them that opportunity to deal with their mental health issues and also not fall behind in school. So that's what's pretty amazing about this school.
So how would a student enroll or maybe be referred to this school specifically?
Sure. So that can happen in multiple different pathways. So it could be parents, it could be the school, it could be a hospital that refers them. But ultimately, we have a team here, again, in partnership with CU, where the school will determine, the intake team will determine whether the student meets the needs of Traverse.
And so there are teachers inside here, but do these teachers get extra training, or are there mental health professionals inside this building as well?
Both. So we have clinical psychologists, and that's their job to make sure that they work on the mental health aspect. And then we also have classroom teachers. So all the different content areas, art, music, PE. So the students, again, don't fall behind in their content areas, making sure that we keep them up to speed in school, but really looking at which content area can they access right now, because they're dealing with anxiety, they're dealing with emotional issues. So we want to make sure that we transition them in a way that's most appropriate for each individual student.
And they'll kind of make that transition when they're ready. And tell me also, I know the capacity for this full is 60 students. I think the small environment does benefit, as you said, for anxiety reasons as well. But tell me also kind of how it works. Students don't stay here all year long.
No, they don't. It really is the pathway of each individual student. So it could be 3 weeks, it could be 6 weeks, it could be 2 months. But ultimately, again, that's what makes this school special. Because if they were in a hospital setting, when their insurance runs out, then they're done. And with this opportunity, because again, with our partnership and because we've hired our own clinical psychologists, students can stay as long as they need. So insurance doesn't matter. So if they need a little bit of extra time, we can make sure that we work with their home schools and talk about maybe a quarter of a day going back, maybe half a day until they're ready to go back full time.
Awesome, Chris. Thanks so much for joining me this morning. Of course, this was all kind of in part of a bond measure that Cherry Creek School District voters decided on in 2020. Well, it's coming to fruition next month. So, of course, we'll continue to be on it, and we'll give you a kind of an inside look. We're going to get a tour inside here in a couple hours. Live in Aurora, Carly Moore, Fox 31.
All right, Carly, thank you.
Can't wait to see inside. Thanks, Carly.
builds bridges where they
Switching gears tonight, we are getting an inside look, that is, at a first of its kind mental health facility for school kids that will offer intensive support, but also education. This facility right here will open next month, and Cherry Creek School District is calling it the Traverse Academy. Fox 31's Carly Moore is on it.
A cafeteria, a gym, and classrooms, staples of a typical school. This building has all of that and one distinct difference.
So having this opportunity in Cherry Creek School District is huge. I guarantee you this school will save lives.
In most schools, the priority is learning the content, with mental health help on the side. At the Traverse Academy, the focus is the students' mental health.
They can receive mental health services for as long as they need. So if it's 2 months, 3 months, which we hope not, but it could be, they can receive that time so that we make sure that they are in a good place so that they return to their learning environment when they're ready.
There's a mix of teachers, clinical psychologists, and paras like Jacob here.
So in my life, I suffered from suicide issues, depression, anger, guilt. I was really struggling at one point in my life. And there was like mentors in my life that were really there for me and supported me. I just wanted to give back and wanted to be there for those kids who once were like me.
This fills the gap between a student's inpatient care and going back to traditional school.
We have come up with a lot of red tape or closed facilities, access because of insurance. This opens doors and builds bridges where they weren't there before.
You can see in this school, not only is the way it works intentional, but also the way it looks. For example, rounded walls for safety and focus rooms like this, so students can take an opportunity to calm down. They even have a light switch that changes color to help students change the mood and feeling in these rooms.
Feels like a home, looks like a home, and the people make it seem like a home.
I hope that we're the first of its kind and not the last of its kind. I am so honored to be part of a solution. And if we can get one, many, we are sending a really positive message to our youth that they matter and that this world is better with them here.
Carly Moore, Fox 31.
Yeah, such a great idea. Carly, thank you. And all of this was funded through a 2020 bond measure. 19 million of that went to the school, and a federal grant supported by Congressman Jason Crow gave $1.5 million to the playground and outdoor learning spaces.
Okay, parents, excellent videos. Like I said, Grow That YouTube channel is all about education, resources for fathers and parents, okay? So I want to share that information with you. Like I said, all videos are in the description. We have one more video that I want to share with you talking about trauma and delinquency. It's very, very important. It's about 11-minute video. And then we will conclude this live stream. I appreciate you being with me today. I know it was a very long live stream, almost 2 hours. So I appreciate you, fathers of daughters. And let's get into this last video.
As a society, we
Okay, fathers. Last video.
As a society, we tend to view juvenile delinquency as a product of bad choices, poor decision-making, and a lack of morals. But what if I told you that it's not that simple? What if I told you that juvenile delinquency is often a symptom of something deeper and more complex? Something like trauma. Juvenile delinquency refers to the involvement of minors in criminal activity or antisocial behavior. It is often seen as a product of poor choices and a lack of morals, but this viewpoint overlooks the underlying causes of delinquent behavior. In many cases, juvenile delinquency can be traced back to experiences of trauma, which can have a profound impact on a young person's development and behavior. Trauma can take many forms, from physical or emotional abuse to neglect or exposure to violence. When children experience trauma, it can affect their emotional and psychological well-being in significant ways, leading to behavioral problems, mental health issues, and even physical health problems. These effects can be particularly pronounced in children who lack strong support systems or who come from disadvantaged backgrounds. For many young people, delinquent behavior is a coping mechanism for dealing with the trauma they have experienced. They may turn to drugs or alcohol, engage in risky behavior, or become involved in criminal activity as a way to numb their pain or gain a sense of control in their lives. Without appropriate intervention and support, these patterns of behavior can become entrenched and lead to a cycle of further trauma and delinquency. To address the issue of juvenile delinquency, it is important to recognize the complex underlying factors that can contribute to this behavior. This means looking beyond simple moral judgments and recognizing the impact of trauma on young people's lives. By providing early intervention and support for children who have experienced trauma, we can help prevent delinquent behavior and promote healthy development. This may involve providing counseling and therapy, creating safe and supportive environments, and addressing the root causes of trauma through targeted interventions. Ultimately, by addressing the underlying causes of juvenile delinquency, we can create a more just and compassionate society for all. Imagine a child growing up in an environment like this. Gunshots ringing out at all hours of the night, parents struggling to make ends meet, and no one around to guide them. It's not hard to see how this kind of environment could lead to trauma, and ultimately, juvenile delinquency. Today, we're going to talk about the impact of trauma on juvenile delinquency, and how we can work to break the cycle. We'll explore the research on this topic and look at some inspiring examples of people who are making a difference in the lives of these vulnerable children. Let's start by looking at the research. According to a study by the National Child Traumatic Stress Network, between 60 and 80% of juvenile justice-involved youth have experienced some form of trauma. This is a staggering number that highlights the importance of addressing trauma when working with youth who are involved in the justice system. Trauma could be anything from physical abuse to neglect, sexual abuse, or exposure to violence in their communities. These traumatic experiences can have long-lasting effects on a child's mental health, leading to depression, anxiety, and even post-traumatic stress disorder. Trauma can take many forms, and the study identifies some of the most common types of trauma experienced by justice-involved youth. These include physical abuse, sexual abuse, neglect, and exposure to violence in their communities. The effects of trauma can be long-lasting and can lead to mental health problems such as depression, anxiety, and post-traumatic stress disorder, PTSD. These mental health issues can manifest in a range of behaviors, including substance abuse, aggression, and criminal behavior. It is important to note that trauma can affect children differently depending on their individual circumstances. For example, trauma experienced in early childhood can have a particularly profound impact on a child's development, as it can interfere with their ability to form healthy attachments and regulate their emotions. Children who lack stable and supportive home environments may also be more vulnerable to the negative effects of trauma. Recognizing the prevalence and impact of trauma among justice-involved youth is an important step in addressing the issue of juvenile delinquency. By providing trauma-informed care and support, we can help young people heal from their traumatic experiences and reduce their risk of engaging in delinquent behavior. This may involve providing mental health services, offering safe and supportive environments, and addressing the underlying causes of trauma through targeted interventions. By taking a comprehensive and trauma-informed approach, we can create a more just and compassionate system for youth involved in the justice system. It's not hard to see how trauma could lead to delinquent behavior. For many of these kids, acting out is a way to cope with the pain and confusion they're feeling. But there is hope. By understanding the impact of trauma, we can work to create interventions that will help these young people heal and break the cycle of delinquency. The relationship between trauma and delinquent behavior is complex and multifaceted. Trauma can affect the way a young person sees the world and interacts with others. It can create feelings of isolation, shame, and worthlessness, leading to a sense of hopelessness and a lack of purpose in life. For many of these kids, Acting out is a way to cope with these overwhelming emotions and find a sense of control in their lives. This can include engaging in risky behaviors, substance abuse, or involvement in criminal activity. However, it is important to note that delinquent behavior is not the fault of the young person. Rather, it is a symptom of the trauma they have experienced. By addressing the underlying causes of the trauma, we can help these young people heal and break the cycle of delinquency. One important aspect of this is providing trauma-informed care. This means recognizing that the youth in question have experienced trauma and providing support that is sensitive to their needs. This may involve providing access to mental health services, creating safe and supportive environments, and offering opportunities for positive reinforcement and skill building. By addressing the trauma and providing support that meets the needs of the individual, we can help these young people develop healthy coping mechanisms and reduce their risk of engaging in delinquent behavior. It is also important to note that early intervention is key. By identifying trauma early and providing appropriate support, we can prevent delinquent behavior from becoming entrenched and create a positive trajectory for the young person's future. This may involve working with families and communities to create supportive environments and address the underlying causes of trauma. Overall, by understanding the impact of trauma on delinquent behavior and providing trauma-informed care, we can help these young people heal and break the cycle of delinquency. With the right interventions and support, we can create a brighter future for justice-involved youth and promote a more just and compassionate society for all. One of the most effective interventions is trauma-focused therapy. This type of therapy is designed specifically for children who have experienced trauma and helps them work through their feelings and emotions in a safe and supportive environment. Studies have shown that trauma-focused therapy can be incredibly effective in reducing delinquent behavior and helping kids get back on track. Another intervention that can make a huge difference is mentoring. Having a positive role model in their lives can be incredibly powerful for young people who have experienced trauma. A mentor can provide a stable and supportive relationship, helping the child build resilience and learn positive coping strategies. Ultimately, it's up to all of us to create a world where children don't have to experience trauma in the first place. We can work to create safer and more supportive communities, provide resources for families who are struggling, and invest in programs that help young people thrive. Preventing trauma from happening in the first place is an important part of addressing the issue of juvenile delinquency. We all have a role to play in creating a world where children are protected from trauma and have the support they need to thrive. One way to prevent trauma is by creating safer and more supportive communities. This can involve addressing issues like poverty, inequality, and violence, which can contribute to traumatic experiences. By investing in programs that promote community safety and well-being, we can create environments that are more supportive and less prone to trauma. Another important way to prevent trauma is by providing resources for families who are struggling. This can include access to mental health services, affordable housing, and support for parents and caregivers. By providing these resources, we can help families create stable and supportive environments that promote healthy development and reduce the risk of trauma. Investing in programs that help young people thrive is also crucial. This can involve providing access to education and job training, as well as programs that promote positive youth development and help young people build skills and self-esteem. By providing these opportunities, we can help young people build a sense of purpose and direction in life, reducing the risk of engaging in delinquent behavior. Ultimately, preventing trauma is a collective responsibility that requires a comprehensive and collaborative approach. By working together to create safer and more supportive communities, provide resources for families, and invest in programs that help young people thrive, we can create a world where children are protected from trauma and have the support they need to reach their full potential. This not only benefits individual young people but also helps to create a more just and compassionate society for all. There are so many inspiring examples of people who are making a difference in the lives of these vulnerable children. From social workers to therapists to mentors, there are people out there who are dedicating their lives to helping young people heal from trauma and overcome the challenges they face. One such person is Sarah, who runs a program for at-risk youth in her community. Sarah has seen firsthand the impact that trauma can have on young people, and she's passionate about helping them break the cycle of delinquency. Through her program, she provides mentorship, counseling, and other support to help these kids build a better future for themselves. Of course, the most inspiring stories are those of the young people themselves. Kids who have experienced trauma and overcome incredible odds to achieve their goals. These kids are proof that with the right support, anyone can heal from trauma and move forward in a positive direction. In the end, the impact of trauma on juvenile delinquency is a complex issue that requires a multifaceted solution. But by working together, we can create a world where all children have the opportunity to heal, thrive, and reach their full potential. Whether you're a parent, a teacher, a mentor, or simply someone who cares, there's something you can do to make a difference. So let's get to work. Thank you for joining me today, and remember, no matter how dark the road may seem, there is always hope.
Okay, fathers, another successful live stream. We covered a lot of information today, fathers. Feel free to subscribe, like, share my live streams, my videos. Feel free to watch them as many times as you need to, because this is what Girl Dad YouTube channel does. We're all about educational, informational, research, resources through instruction. So I thank you, fathers, for participating today and being a part of Girl Dad YouTube channel. I'll be back next week. I live stream every week, fathers of daughters. Thank you for your time. We're here during the summer now. Enjoy them babies. Kiss them babies. Hug them. Tell them you love them. Show them you love them. And continue to be the awesome dads that you are. Until next week's live stream, you know the routine. I'm out. I'll holla at you next week. Peace.